Hi everyone. So I already filmed the introduction to this video and then watched it back and realized the entire thing was out of focus. So I'm restarting, but it did occur to me that most of you are here because Candace Owen sent you this way, which I am so incredibly grateful for. But that also means none of you know me, and as you watch my content, you might decide that you don't like me or I'm not for you, which is totally okay. But I thought while I had your attention, I would talk about something that I truly care about, and that is SSRIs. This is something that is incredibly close to my heart because I was on them for so long. I am pretty against it for myself at this point. I'm not on SSRIs in any capacity anymore, and it was something that helped me at one point that also kind of destroyed my life at one point. And so I wanted to talk about a lot of different things in that realm. So welcome back to the Patchwork Podcast. So I wanted to talk about SSRIs. When I was 18 to 21, I feel like every person that I knew was on SSRIs, and it helped a lot of us, honestly, at the beginning. But now, almost every single person I know that was on any kind of SSRI is off them, and we are all better for it now. And I have no judgment for people that are still on them. I understand that it has helped so many people, and I truly think it saved my life the time that I was on it. But I'm also very, very grateful that I'm off all of it now, because I was impulsive, I was numb, yet also incredibly emotional. I did not make a lot of great decisions. It honestly just affected me in so many different ways, and I'm going to get into that. I'm going to talk about the side effects, the costs, big pharma, the increase in transgenderism, the increase in school shootings, and how I believe that is all related. In the video I saw where this girl made an apple cinnamon latte, she had a little scooper, and I don't. I'm trying this. It's not working very well. So in February 2026, this was published, and it's talking about antidepressants dispensing to adolescents and young adults and how it surged during the pandemic, which obviously. So it says, after March 2020, this rate increased 130% faster among female adolescents aged 12 to 17 years and 60% faster among female young adults ages 18 to 25. Multiple studies suggest that rates of anxiety and depression among female adolescents increased during the pandemic. So it kind of talks about how they already feel like we had a pre-existing mental health crisis, but the pandemic made it worse. And honestly, I feel like for myself, the pandemic was actually a really amazing thing. Though I already was struggling with mental health heavily before the pandemic started, I was in Tennessee during that time, and so I was able to run all the time. I would just go on these long trail runs. I ran so many half marathons. I was out in nature. I was out of school, which is causing so many problems for me. I was doing significantly better during 2020. It was a really positive thing for me. I remember praying God that in some way could he just put the world on pause. And then a global pandemic happened, which was crazy. Be careful what you wish for, because I know that wasn't good for a lot of people, but it was a really good thing for me, I will say. But nevertheless, it doesn't surprise me that people did not do well in this environment. Obviously, when you are locked in your house for 2 years, you're forced to be around your family when so many people don't have great family relationships. You can't see people's faces because everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's on their phones all the time. People start to become radicalized. Everything during 2020 was the most crazy year of our lives. BLM, everybody's burning down cities. Nothing feels real about that time to me. And so it makes complete sense that there was a surge in a mental health crisis at that point, obviously. So let's talk about males and SSRIs, because the article says, in contrast to females, the antidepressant dispensing rate changed little among male young adults after March 2020 and declined among male adolescents. It's hard to believe this decline reflects improved mental health, he said. He believes a more likely explanation is that male adolescents may have skipped physicals and other healthcare visits during the pandemic, decreasing opportunities to diagnose and treat anxiety and depression. This doesn't surprise me at all. I feel like men are far less likely to talk about their emotions. If they're having any sort of problem, I feel like they're a lot less likely to go get help for it. I think for some reason it's always seen as embarrassing when men show their emotions. I also think for so long men were told to put everything they think and feel on the back burner so that women can be elevated. Just kind of look what's happened. Look how men are faring in our society today. Look how they're doing because we did that, because we discouraged them so much, because our society was awful to straight men for so long. Honestly, I think a lot of what happened is you have this first generation of kids that we were to be raised in the age of technology. So in a lot of ways, we were lab rats. We were an experiment. Guys, I am literally having to carve out the inside of this apple because the scooper's not working. We had all this information literally in the palm of our hands at such a young age. Just imagine what that does to a child. And I would encourage my generation, as we're starting to grow up and a lot of people are starting to have kids, we need to be the ones to start raising our kids without technology. And obviously there's a way to implement it in their lives where they still understand how to use it and it's not like a boomer thing with technology. But I also think your 5-year-old doesn't need an iPad, you know? And obviously it's hard when you're a parent and you are exhausted and you just want something to distract your kid for a little bit. But I think it is so much more worth it to suffer through that exhaustion than to put an iPad in your child's hand. So then we add in social media. We've got jealousy and comparison, wanting to see how many likes you can get, and nothing on social media is real. It is only the highlight part of your life. So people think that you are I can't tell you how many times when I was severely depressed posting on Instagram like I'm having the time of my life. I mean, come on. It's just not real. It's not real at all. And I would encourage everybody to look at social media through that lens. It's not real. Nobody's going to go on Instagram for the most part and be like, hey, this was the worst week of my life, and I just wanted to share some photos to tell everyone how bad it's going. It's just not what it is. It's not the reality of Instagram and how people use social media, and I think we just have to keep that in mind when we use it. It's all fake. And then, of course, girls, we feel like we have to look a certain way because everybody is photoshopping themselves and retouching their faces on Instagram. And then, of course, you feel like you have to compete with everybody because now, even if you are a good, moral human being that is trying with everything that you can do to not view nude people online, inevitably, if you download TikTok or Instagram or X or whatever it may be, you are going to see nude people online. And that is so sad because there are children on every single one of these apps. And I believe that they push that content out there. And we all know that these things on social media mean absolutely nothing, but I think it's wired us to care about meaningless things, therefore we are living meaningless lives. When we are sitting in our deathbed and everything is said and done, we are not going to care about how many followers or how many likes we had or what we posted on Instagram or social media. We are going to care about the people that were around us, the people that we loved, what we accomplished, the places that we went, the things that we did, the children that we had, the friends that we made. That's what's going to matter at the end of the day, not a meaningless online life. But again, we wonder why there is an increase in anxiety and depression, and our generation is so sad. You wired us to live these meaningless lives, and you wonder why we feel meaningless and unhappy and sad, because so many of us feel like we don't have a purpose for being here anymore. And then people stopped looking at God and they started looking at the world to feel their hearts. I don't remember who said this quote, but basically the quote is that there is a God-sized hole in your heart, and if you don't fill that with God, something else will fill it. Meaning there is this innate desire in human beings to have meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and you can only find that through God. And if you are filling that hole in your heart with something outside of God, you will not be fulfilled. So let's talk about the side effects of SSRIs, because again, that is something when I got on my medication, it wasn't really talked to me about very much, the side effects and the potential issues I could face going on this medicine. It was more like, hey, we think this is going to help you, here you go. And I think that's a really dangerous thing. So let me just read you the list of potential side effects for Prozac. This was one of the medications I took, and I think it's probably the most commonly prescribed SSRI. The other is likely Zoloft, which they're very similar to my understanding. And before we get started, suicidal ideation is literally a side effect of SSRIs. And the goal is to make you not suicidal. So what are we doing here, guys? Because I remember getting on it and it really helping me a lot at the beginning and starting to feel better. And then again, they go through that route where they continuously add on more stuff. And eventually I was numb. I could not handle my emotions. My emotions were up and down. I was either super sad or super happy. And I couldn't comprehend anything going on in my life. And of course, the suicidal ideation increased. And I just want to know if these drug companies are even being held accountable for what they are doing. For mass prescribing medication to, again, the first generation that has really gone through this. I believe the first SSRIs were produced in the 90s. Fact check me on that. I could be totally wrong. So here are some side effects for Prozac. Headache, nausea, upset stomach or indigestion, diarrhea, dry mouth, drowsiness or sleepiness, trouble sleeping, strange or vivid dreams, shaking, nervousness, sweating, yawning, weakness or fatigue, changes in appetite or weight increase or decrease, flu-like symptoms, sinus pain or sore throat, hot flashes, vision changes, loss of appetite, sexual dysfunction, dizziness, memory or concentration problems, sensory disturbances, coordination difficulties, unusual movements or muscle stiffness, seizures, palpitations or fast heart rate, chest pain, rash, itching, hives, swelling or face limbs if you have an allergic reaction, changes in menstrual bleeding, breast swelling, unusual milk production, bruising or unusual bleeding. You get the point. I could go on for a very long time. And of course, suicidal ideation or behaviors, which again is incredibly worrisome hearing that from a product that is supposed to help you be happier. What are we doing? So I'm not even saying I'm completely against SSRIs. What I am saying is I think you should look into more holistic remedies before you jump to medicine, and that is something I wish that I did. And that is something I'm still confused to this day that doctors didn't ask me to try to do. I think maybe sometimes they think you're at a severe level and they really just want to go ahead and give you that medicine. I think these companies make a lot of money off of people buying antidepressants. I probably spent $80 a month on it, which is a lot. At the end of the day, this is exactly like Ozempic. If you are chunky and you go on some Ozempic and you lose a bunch of weight, but you don't change your lifestyle and you get off Ozempic, guess what? You're going to gain all the weight back. If you go on SSRIs and you don't change your lifestyle and you get off SSRIs, you are going to become depressed again. You are going to have further problems in your life, which is obvious, But I think it's important to develop, while maybe sometimes we need medication to give us a crutch or a little bit of help, it's also really important to develop those healthy lifestyle habits first. And when I say holistic help, what I am talking about is things like setting timers on your phone usage, going for a run or a walk, starting a gym routine, eating healthy. And by eating healthy, I mean actually looking at the ingredients of what you are purchasing at the grocery store. Because if we look at Americans' health overall and how many antidepressants we are all on and all the medication Americans are on, I bet 90% of these problems that we are having would be fixed if we were all eating clean. Journal, do art, do things that get you off your phone, that make you feel like you have meaning and purpose. Go to church, read your Bible, pray, talk to Jesus. And I'm also not against therapy. I've done therapy before. I did it for a really long time, and I think it can be a really positive thing. But I also think when you are in therapy for too long, it causes you to look for problems in your life before every session. So let's say you're starting to do better, things are going well for you, and you're like, shoot, me and the therapists are meeting up today. You might start looking for problems in your life to be like, well, what are we going to talk about? Things are actually going pretty good. And I also just think that you need to be really careful about the therapist that you choose, and that it doesn't need to be a long-term thing. You can go to a therapist for a little bit to deal with the problems that you are having, but I don't think it needs to be something that you do for the rest of your life. And I would heavily encourage EMDR therapy to anybody that is severely struggling with any sort of trauma or problem. Basically, what it does is you hold these two, I'll give an example. Let's pretend my spices are these little cubes. You hold these two little cubes in your hand that vibrate back and forth. I think they have a wire on them. I honestly can't remember at this point. They vibrate back and forth, and then you look back and forth while you do it. And basically, you retell whatever story it is that you were struggling with, that you were trying to get through. The way that this was explained to me is when you go through a serious trauma in your life, basically your brain has all these filing cabinets. And when you go through the trauma, it's basically like everything got scattered all over your brain. And so then the trauma is kind of at the forefront of your brain, and you just have a really hard time with everything, And that might be why you have panic attacks, or you're always thinking about it, or certain words might trigger, whatever it may be. When you do EMDR therapy, you are basically putting everything back into the filing cabinet so you can be a normal human being again. I cannot stress this enough how much I encourage people to do EMDR therapy that are truly struggling with a trauma. Just me. Just saying. I would just encourage people to look into it because it was something that also changed my life. And again, back to the therapist. Somebody once told me to never take advice from somebody if you wouldn't want your life to look like theirs. And I could not agree with that more. So I think when you are choosing a therapist, you just need to be, again, really careful who you're getting your advice from, who you are choosing to speak with, because that's obviously important, when you're sharing really difficult things, who you're getting advice from. If you're a Christian, are they also a believer? Are they encouraging you in biblical ways and biblical values? If you're not a Christian, what are you looking for out of the advice? How does that therapist's life look? What do you want from the session? I think that's all really important before you start things like that, in my opinion. So I'll just wrap that up by saying, why not give it a shot? Trying these holistic remedies before you go to SSRIs. So let's get back to the phone usage and how we are all a bunch of zombies, wasting times away on our screens. And again, I understand the irony of that as I'm talking to you on a screen right now, but hopefully I am providing you with something of value that will give you something to think about. I've started something on Sundays where I'm truly trying to honor the Sabbath, and I do no social media and as little technology as possible on Sundays, and it has truly changed my life, just giving my Sundays to God. And I highly encourage it for everybody, even if you are not a believer. It is something to just give your body time to rest. I really want to read Charlie Kirk's book about, I think it's called Stop in the Name of God, but it's about honoring the Sabbath. And so I really want to read that because I'm sure he has nothing but great advice in there. Okay, so smartphones. So this article says, according to recent data, the average person spends 4 hours and 37 minutes on their phone every day. That's the equivalent of over 1 day per week or 6 days per month. Across a year, that's approximately 70 days spent looking at a phone. Let's say this is accurate, though I think most people spend far more time on their phones. Let's say the average person lives 85 years. That's 5,950 days spent on your phone. That's 16.3 years spent on your phone. My calculator did the math. I didn't, so you know that you can trust it. And here's the thing, guys. We are living in a system and in a world that we did not build, but we do have the power to make it better and to not let the system control us. I can't imagine all this time we're spending on our phones is helping the mental health crisis, and I would obviously imagine it is only making it worse, and that this addiction has gotten worse since 2020. Vast majority of our society's problems got far worse after 2020, especially in correlation to mental health. Now let's take a look at the spike in transgenderism. So about 0.46 of males in 2020 were identifying as transgender, and in 2023, 0.691 are. And as for females in 2020, 0.53 were identifying as transgender, and as of 2023, 0.909 are. You cannot tell me that there is no correlation between time spent in echo chambers on our phone, SSRIs, and transgenderism. I wouldn't believe it. And also, I think it's important to note that pre-2020, people didn't, for the most part, it was an anomaly if you actually believed that you were born a female and completely transitioned into a male, or vice versa. People didn't actually think that. People would cross-dress and it was weird, but like whatever, nobody really cared, whatever. But now people actually think that they are legitimately changing their gender, and that is a serious problem. That is heavily concerning that people are that far gone in our society that they truly believe they can change their gender. I have so much love and care for those people. I have known very, very many transgender people in my life, and I feel sad for those people because I genuinely cannot imagine feeling so much physical discomfort in your body that you feel like you have to mutilate it or take hormones to change yourself. And that is so incredibly sad, and I think as Christians we should be empathetic and loving towards those people. Also, the apple's carved. I'm adding in cinnamon and nutmeg. There's another side of that coin. I want to be a mom one day, and our generation is hitting a point where we are starting to have kids and raise children. I do not want my children growing up in a world where they truly believe that they can change their sex, or where people around them truly believe that, because any kid of mine isn't going to believe that. That is insanity. Those people need help and prayers, not drugs and mutilation, and I wish that was something we could all agree on, and honestly, I can't wrap my brain around the fact that we can't agree on that. This is the Bongo blend coffee, and this is just our little coffee grinder. And I can assure you that the doctors that did this to these children will meet God one day at the end of their lives, and they will have to explain to God what they did. And I just pray for those people that they have truly repented and come to terms with what they did and have asked for forgiveness, because the world has not punished those people, but God will. Okay, this is the idea for the apple cinnamon latte. We're gonna press it down. Now the apple seems to slightly be leaking. Let's also take a look at the correlation with school shootings. If anyone tries to tell me there's no correlation between school shootings and SSRIs, I truly believe you have lost your mind, because I think it is incredibly evident. So, another shocker. When are we seeing a huge spike in school shootings? 2021, after everybody went through a year of hell during the pandemic. K through 12 school shooting database incidents by year 1966 to 2025. In 1966, it's saying there was 9. The highest peak was in 2023, 352 at the peak of insanity. That is heartbreaking. I remember there's an old video of Charlie Kirk talking about this, where he's asking why we don't have guards outside our schools. And oh my gosh, my entire apple latte is leaking. Why did theirs not leak in the Instagram video I watched? So in that Charlie Kirk video, he's basically saying we use security guards outside our football games, outside concerts. We have armed people at all of these facilities and places. Children are our most valuable thing in this society. Why are we not having armed guards protect schools? And I couldn't agree with him more on that. It's actually really good. I really wish I could put it in the apple though, but it has a heavy apple taste. This is interesting as well. It's got a little graph talking about how the incident ended, and 41.8 fled or escaped, and 35.4 fled or were apprehended then, and 7.8% were killed. 2.3 were killed by SRO officers. Suicide, 4.4%. I honestly thought that would be a higher number. Attempted suicide, 0.5, and surrendered, 5.9. That's really interesting to me, seeing how a lot of these ended. And I think it's obvious, we see this every time there's a school shooting. Every time there's a school shooting and the photo comes out of the person, I think every single one of us are thinking, yeah, obviously this kid just did a school shooting. Like, this is exactly who I would have thought just did the school shooting. I don't say that to be rude, but there is an obvious type of kid that people are rude to at school, that people in society are rude to, that treat them different. The loner kid. And this just goes back to, if you were in high school and listening to this, because another part of this graph I wanted to show you guys is that 62.1% of these school shootings happen in high school. If you are in high school or college or middle school, wherever you are in your life, if there's somebody that seems lonely, that seems like they don't have any friends, that might be a little bit off-putting, that might be a little bit odd, go be their friend. Go sit with them at lunch. Go be 2 people alone, sitting alone at lunch together. Be their friend. Because I can't tell you how many stories I've heard where that has made a difference in somebody's life. I have heard this from people in my own life who I know have gone to do something kind for somebody else that is a little bit of a loner, that's a little bit weird, that could have been that type of person to commit an atrocity like this. And all they needed was one friend. All they needed was one person to say, hey, somebody cares about you. And I think if we were all a little bit kinder, and also I've never understood it, not wanting to be friends with the weird people. In my personal opinion, being friends with weird people is the most fun thing. If somebody is not a little bit weird or something's a little bit off, a little bit of autism, whatever it may be, I like people like that. They're more fun. They're more interesting to talk to. I don't want to be around boring, bland people all the time. So put yourself out there. Be friends with people that are a little bit different. That's okay. They need friends. Everybody needs friends. You need them. Think about how you would feel if you were alone all the time. I know what that's like because I've gone through phases where I've had 0 friends. And gosh, if one person would have just come up to me and sat with me, it would have made a world of difference in my life or how I was feeling at the time. So all of this goes to say, I think whenever we are talking about SSRIs, it would be something I would tell people to be very cautious of, be very careful of what you get yourself into. It's incredibly difficult to get off of them. A lot of people kind of cold turkey it. It was hard getting off. You do feel very anxious, and a lot of those waves of depression and that like heavy feeling inside, like you feel that a lot, but it gets better and you are better for it. My emotions are so much more regulated. I am so much happier now. I don't struggle with mental health anymore. I just feel like a normal human being, and it really feels nice, I will say. So I would just encourage anyone to do loads of research, to look into holistic solutions if you are struggling with mental health, and to try to fix different areas of your life before you go to things like this. So as I was wrapping up editing the video, I wanted to make sure that I put together my thoughts on everything, because sometimes I start filming and talking and don't address everything I wanted to. Basically, my entire thought process is that 2020 is when so much of this went downhill. We've got kids locked in their houses. We've got faces covered. An increase in SSRI usage. In 2021, we saw that uptick in school shootings. And then, of course, we all saw transgender transgenderism take off completely after 2020, and in a way that we had never really seen it happen before, because obviously a lot of people, especially if you are in more left-leaning areas, probably experienced a lot of transgender people in your life, but not people that truly believed that they could change their gender. And again, I mentioned this in the video, but that's a scary thing, that you truly believe you can change your gender. I think the main problems that cause this, SSRI usage causes you to not use your critical thinking skills, and it causes you to be impulsive and numb, but also overly emotional. I think that played into so many of the problems that Gen Z is having in this day and age. I think a lot of what I believe should be obvious to the average person with common sense. It's really clear to me. I mean, I feel like most of us could probably see this without having to look into it and do a lot of research about how much damage the pandemic had on our society as a whole, especially these younger generations. Even thinking about the kids that were born during the pandemic that for the first 2 years of their life may have never really seen very many human faces outside of the people in their house. That does a number on a kid, okay? For the people here that are new, which is likely everybody, I wanted to share how most of my videos go. I'm generally just going through a topic that I care about and that I want to talk about. I give my commentary and my input on it, and you're welcome to share your thoughts if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. I saw a lot of people saying they did not like the music I had in the background. Noted, I pulled all the music from this one other than the intro and exit music. No more music. Sometimes I like a little background music, but I get it. Sometimes it's annoying, so I pulled that. And I appreciate hearing everybody's feedback, so I'm always open to it, especially when you think I'm wrong about something. But I would also just like everyone to know I'm 23. I'm not really new to this. I've been posting videos since 2019. Most all of those have been archived that were my early days posting because they're the cringiest, most embarrassing things in the world. But I have been posting for a long time. I started my podcast, I want to say, at the beginning of 2025. That could be a little bit off. So I haven't been doing the podcast format as long. So it's definitely been something I'm having to learn because I'm not trained in this. I'm not experienced in it. I just enjoy it. I'm a talker. I love conversation. I just love getting to connect with people on that level. And I couldn't agree more with the statement that Charlie Kirk had said that when people stop talking, violence starts happening. And I think that's why these conversations are so important to have, so that you can see the humanity in the other side. So even if you disagree with me, I would encourage you to listen to my views, because you stop seeing the humanity in the other side. And I try to do the same with people that disagree with me. And I enjoy listening to people from the other side because it opens up my mind and it makes me view those people as human beings, not crazy leftists that we see going viral on the internet all the time. I would also love if you have any ideas or topics that you would want me to talk about, if you want to comment those. And I fully believe that this is not my platform but y'all's, because this is what you guys have given to me. So I will always do my best to try to right my wrongs and figure out how I can make this better for anybody that continues to listen. I hope that everybody subscribed does continue to listen, and that you came here from Candace but you stayed because you liked me. And if I'm not for you, that's totally okay. And so I'll just end all of that by saying that I've seen the way that mental health has impacted my generation in a horrific way. I've seen the worst of what depression can do to a person from firsthand experience, and I would not wish that on my worst enemy. So if you came here looking for intense journalistic findings, that I might not be the place for you. My goal is more so to bring in Gen Z and teach them that there is another way than the way that I went through. Because I think what happened to me happened to so many other people in my generation. And again, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. And so my main goal is trying to help my generation. That's what I care most about. Of course, that involves research and investigations and things like that, but not to the extent that people like Candace or Ian Carroll might be going through. For people like them, it's their full-time jobs. And for me right now, this is still side projects. So what I try to do is shorter form videos that just share where my thoughts and beliefs are with a current situation that is happening or a problem that I think is going on in the world right now. And if you came here expecting to agree with everything I say, that's 100% just not going to happen. And if I've learned one thing, it's that I absolutely do have a knack for pissing people off. It's not intentional whatsoever. I feel quite agreeable, and in real life, I'm not confrontational whatsoever. I just feel like in this online world, I tend to piss people off a lot, and that's because most people online don't have a moral compass and aren't really driven by the Bible. So when I say things where my moral compass is driven by the Bible, it's a good chance it's going to piss a lot of people off, and that's okay, because I always go back to the verse that says, just know that if the world hated you, they hated me first. And that stays at the top of my brain, so every time I read a mean comment or somebody telling me that they don't like me, I'm like, oh, but Jesus says this about me. Oh, but Jesus went through this, so if a mean comment is the worst thing that's going to happen to me, I'm okay. Just wanted to put a couple announcements out there because everybody's new here. So you don't know that I have an knack for pissing people off, but I do. And you could very well be one of those people. I could say something and you could be like, Maggie, that pissed me off. Feel free to share with me in the comments so that maybe you open up my mind. Maybe it's not clocking to me. And all I needed was you to say, sweet little Maggie, not a thought up in that pretty little head of yours. You are wrong about this. Here's why. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to tell me. I have a pretty little head and there's not a thought up there, and explain why I'm wrong about it. And then we can converse. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.